Hi, I don't even remember what week this is, but I really had a hard time. I've been having a hard time lately, so please forgive my slacking. But here is my baby. That's Yarden. You can't really see him. He's sleeping. So I'm going to read you some notes that I had for the song, and then I'm going to read you something that's a bit like a eulogy, because the prompt is threatened, and this week a very important person in my life named Mary Hecht died. She had been, her condition, she was pretty old, but she was a wild artist. She was the first wild, untamed artist I ever met, and she was sort of like family to me. So I was going to write a song all about it, and I can't put my guitar on because the baby's sleeping on me, but what I can do is just read you what my notes were, and I had a little idea for a chorus. So that's what I'm doing. So I had a couple ideas for the chorus. One idea was, I'll just snap, wild, as in refuse to be tamed, wild, as in refuse to be changed, wild, as in refuse to be blamed, wild, 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 living out of the lines, wild, inner space and time, wild, a strong body and mind, wild, wild. And then, even a wild horse needs to eat, even a wildflower needs the heat, even a wild boar needs a hug, even a stray dog needs some love. Wild, as in refuse to be tamed, wild, as in refuse to be changed, wild, as in refuse to be blamed, wild, 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 living out of the lines, wild, in space and time, now wild, a strong body and mild, wild, wild. And I'll just read you a little bit about Mary. The way an artist struggles, this was inspired by Reka, who did this monologue. The way an artist struggles to create art that tells the truth, that's how Mary lived her life. She looked you straight in the eye, filled with concern and passion and intelligence, and she told you exactly what she thought. Mary also listened. She actually listened, thought, and processed what you said, no matter what age you were. I remember being like 6 years old and telling her something, and she would be like, and she would really think about it and respond. She was so rare. That's how it made me think of threatened. She was like to me it was like a dying breed, like an endangered spirit. So unusual in how she incorporated her listening, her strong opinions, her art, and her fierce love and hugs. She also, as my dad recalled, ate heartily and had a huge appetite. In an odd way, although I'm sure she hadn't a penny to her name or a ton of family, I think Mary actually loved life. She derived true pleasure and joy out of hugging, eating, discovering, and of course, art. Her art was actually in a different category than pleasure and joy. I believe that for Mary, making art was like breathing. She could not refrain from doing it, or else she would stop being Mary. She would often borrow money from my parents, and then, being broke, would pay us back in art. I think this frustrated my dad, but as a child, I found it to be the most marvelous thing in the world, and marvelous was Mary's favorite word. She would say, "Oh, I think that's marvelous." Imagine art instead of money. Art as equal to money. I would ask delightedly or curiously where the last piece of art had come from in our house, and my dad would grumble something about Mary. I was amazed at how much she could create. She moved to a artist cooperative housing complex when I was in high school. Visiting her was like stepping into a magical world where art and community were the most important things. I inhaled every morsel of this world, understanding on a deep level that it meant there were many ways to live, and some people got to live like this. It felt oddly comforting, familiar, homey. Mary, oh my gosh, my writing's so messy. Speaking of home, would show up for all the Jewish holidays and sometimes on Shabbat as if out of nowhere. I realize now that my mom had actually called her and invited her. But then actually after a while she would just show up. It was assumed that she was attending because she was just like family to us. In fact, my mom would say she doesn't have family here. We are what she has. We're her Jewish family. And she really did feel that way. I delighted in her visits. Sometimes she annoyed me, especially as I got older and a little bit embarrassed by all the adults in my life. But she always had something to say. So that's Mary Hecht. She was a really amazing person in my life. I'm going to end this very long dedication or whatever with that little refrain again for Mary about how wild she was. And Mary, thank you for all that you taught me to be in the world. Wild, as in refuse to be tamed. Wild, as in refuse to be changed. Wild, as in refuse to be blamed. Wild, 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 living out of the lines. Wild, in her own space and time. Wild, a strong body and mind. Wild, 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 wild. Even a wild horse needs to eat. Even a wildflower needs the heat. Even a wild boar needs a hug. Even a stray dog needs some love. Wild, 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 wild. Alright, thank you for sticking it out to the end. You want to say goodbye? Let's see if I can get a little shot.